from the City of Surrey, Business Development Bank of Canada, as well as Export Development Canada. So for those joining us throughout the webinar, if you do have a question, I'll ask that you type your question into the chat box. At the end of the webinar, I'll compile and ask the panelists for their responses based on the questions that are provided. So to start, what I'll do is I'll ask my fellow panelists to just quickly introduce themselves and to maybe share one theme or prevailing response that they've heard through their engagements with their community and local businesses. And I'll throw it over to you, Farina.
Thank you, Edward. Hello, everyone. My name is Farina Fassihi. I work with City of Surrey Economic Investment Services, and it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for taking the time to join our webinar. I would echo a lot of the things that Edward just mentioned in terms of the sentiment that we are hearing from businesses. We're seeing very clear signs of how interconnected Surrey is with U.S. trade and how impacted businesses are with respect to things like revenue loss, profit loss, and just daily operating challenges. Surrey, like many of you might know, is a major manufacturing hub. So a lot of the impact that we're seeing is in the manufacturing sector and businesses that and companies that support that industry in Surrey and the region. I'll start with that, but I'll hand it over to the rest of the panel before we get into a deeper dive.
Great, John. I'll pass it to you then. John, do you want to?
Sorry. Yes. My name is John An. I'm the senior account manager here in BDC. My job is kind of dealing with business owners more on the financing side. So lately, I would say since beginning of the year, January, March, really this tariff has been proposing this uncertainty to my client, which has impact on their cash flow and which also kind of makes them worried, like what I'm going to do for my rest of the year. We all know it's kind of important, the financial planning, but in this case, everything's kind of changing and new information come out every day, every week. So those uncertainty has been kind of putting challenge to our business society, especially my client. Then the BDC has kind of come up with the some support and solutions, which I kind of will go over that a little bit more. And I think this is great opportunity for the event to bring us all together, so we can share what we have learned from my end, and also kind of share with our business community what kind of support and the information is available from BDC.
Perfect. Thanks, John. And then I'll throw it over to the EDC team to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Edward. Maybe I'll just go ahead. Hello, everyone. My name is Inyeob Kim, Senior Relationship Manager at EDC Vancouver Regional Office, along with my colleague, Mike Ansara, and I'll let Michael introduce himself in a bit, but really grateful for this opportunity to get together and talk about what kind of support we could provide to Canadian entrepreneurs as well as exporters. The U.S. tariff threw really like a big challenge to many businesses, and I hear a lot of uncertainties and still figuring out like, oh, should I diversify my export market? What are the supports available? Going through the supply chain management, reassessing like where to move the goods. So I really take this opportunity to introduce EDC support as well, like maybe in the follow-up meetings so we could have a more deep dive. So thanks for having us. Michael?
Thank you so much, Inyeob. Yes, just to echo Inyeob's thoughts, it's nice to meet you all virtually. And if you haven't heard of EDC before, we're hoping that this is the first time. But if not, that we can provide you some critical information. I mean, it's quite a fluid economy right now. A lot of geopolitical unrest, and I think a lot of continental trade has been kind of disrupted. And to Inyeob's points, companies are looking to diversify, right? Share their risk, so to speak. And that's what our job is. Our job is to be the risk experts for you, to make sure that if there are disruptions, that we at least provide you with the knowledge and resources alongside our colleagues on this line so that you can make a really calculated and critical pivot where required. So looking forward to having further discussions with you. And if there's questions in the chat, please feel free to provide those, and we'll do our best to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And to your point as well, this webinar really got started because we were all engaging with our individual communities and obviously EDC in a broader term. And we found that there was the sentiment across the board was generally the same. And fortunately, both BDC and EDC pivoted fairly quickly to launch some programs. Thank you again, Michael, and welcome everyone. I noticed that we are still getting a few more joining us. We'll jump right into things. So Farina, Surrey is the largest manufacturing hub in the region and one of the largest across Canada and Western Canada, and with over, I think, 1,500 manufacturing companies employing over 10,000 professionals. So in your engagements with businesses navigating through these tariffs, what sort of challenges are you seeing with your business community, and what sort of support more specifically are they looking for?
Yeah, thanks, Edward. That is exactly true. We're seeing, like I mentioned, very clear signs that show how connected Surrey's economy is with U.S. trade. To give you a bit of context, in just the last 3 months, over 5,900 containers were shipped from Surrey to the U.S. That is about 3,900 bills of lading. We are a border city, so the trucking industry is a major player too. We have about 700 truck transportation companies in Surrey, both in general and specialized freight trucking. And these companies handle 80 to 90% of freight going from Canada to the US and vice versa. So any disruption hits them very hard. A recent survey has showed that about 90% of businesses in Surrey right now are expecting financial impacts from the tariffs, and another 79% are anticipating employment and operational impact. So we have a lot of businesses that do trade with the US. We have a lot of manufacturing, logistics, warehousing, and transportation companies that are directly impacted by these uncertainties and the tariffs and the counter tariffs. On the consumer side, just to highlight an interesting point, sentiment is shifting as well. We see that 98% of surveyed consumers in Surrey right now are saying that they're not buying American-made products right now. So that also signals a very significant change in buying behavior. And this is just some data points and some facts about where Surrey stands when it comes to trade with the US. But beyond these numbers, and what we're hearing from the businesses is that they're under very real pressures. And you can go to the next slide for this one. Some of them are canceling expansion plans. Some of them are delaying projects or putting them on hold for now. We see that daily operating costs are becoming harder to manage. Some businesses said that their revenue could be cut to half even, with potential layoffs to follow. It's more like the volatility of the US market, which is making long-term planning very difficult for businesses. Negotiating some of the longer-term contracts we're hearing is becoming impossible for businesses in Surrey. Now, we know that BC has a more diversified supply chain compared to some of the other provinces, but that doesn't mean that businesses are shielded from the uncertainty around the trade and tariffs at the moment. And that is a lot of the sentiment that we hear, that it's the uncertainty that is killing business. Manufacturing in particular is taking a hit, squeezed margins, revenue losses, and some of the companies we hear are consolidating operations from multiple buildings into one building, which has led to laying off staff just for them to be able to stay viable. So as a result of all this, we're also seeing that there's a very growing urgency among businesses to find new markets and new suppliers that are more stable, and to be able to gradually reduce the reliance that they currently have on the US. And a lot of the support that they're looking for is along those lines. How can we diversify the supply chains? How can we find new suppliers that are local? either regional or within Surrey. And a lot of the programs that they're seeking within government is along those lines, is what we hear.
Awesome. Thank you, Farina. I think I can definitely echo that from the Coquitlam side of things as well. Initially, I think there was that sense of urgency, and we noticed that a number of our manufacturers are also stockpiling if they had warehousing space down in the US. And stockpiling for 3 months, and that 3 months is quickly coming by, and things are still very much changing day to day. So interesting landscape that we find ourselves in. But John, we just heard from the city of Surrey that businesses are canceling projects, canceling expansion plans, struggling to manage daily operating expenses. What can BDC do to kind of support these companies that are just trying to keep their doors open?
I 100% agree with that kind of feedback. And same thing I have been seeing from my end. The multiple conversation I hear from the client right now is I'm delayed on my expansion plan, and I need to get more working capital to stock up the stuff I need. That was kind of happened between the February, March, even the April finish. Now, with the U.S. tariff policy change, those kind of has been made kind of even more. So what kind of support we have in BD? The bank has come up with the 2 programs. One is from financing on the loan side. So what we have introduced is the growth loan. This is kind of offer the benefit of this program is kind of really to give the business owner those essential liquidity to navigate through this challenging time. Right now, we said the owner knows their business well, but also they can have to make an adjustment to see whether I have to order more or whether I have to improve my operation, which there's different way to mitigate those risks, but they need financial support. So the BDC comprises the loan program. We can provide up to $2 million working capital loan. And but you see the bracket is kind of for our existing client. They have a smaller loan, and they may have existing working capital loan from us. So we kind of basically accumulate existing working capital and new loan. We have to kind of cap at $2 million. The structure for this is the client have option to pay interest only for the first 12 months of the loan, and it's up to 72 months of amortization as a repayment for the loan. So the client can pay back the balance at any time with no penalty, and also there is very aggressive preferred interest rate attached to this program. And also, we are not going to charge any fee for the client to interested or want to apply for the loan. There is going to be more. The requirement for this, we need to kind of have a company demonstrate a revenue greater than $2 million, and also there's key components, at least of 25% of the revenue is kind of impacted by to export to the United States or to other countries, and they have to demonstrate us and show us there is a significant impact likelihood has been affected by this tariff. So those are kind of more details, and each business are different, and that's why we are here to want to kind of learn a bit more about the business and the challenge, so we can come up with more tailored product. So the second part, beside the financing, we also kind of provide our BDC advisory service. It's really kind of give the opportunity offering the free one-on-one the consulting service with the business owner. So we can sit down to assess their financial health and also identify the area which they may see the challenge and from this tariff impact. So we kind of work with the client, get the information, and kind of put a overview, very detailed overview together for the business, so the business owner knows where they at. We also can evaluate the financial impact of the changing market condition, demand through the different scenario, supply chain delay, or material price increase, the consumer spending has been kind of reduced or low. So those different scenarios also have financial impact on the business. We also will kind of to figure out the potential solutions, how to navigate through those impacts, and what kind of action can the client to take. And after this assessment stage, the BDC also have opportunity to help you to set up a tangible, actionable plan. So that part will involve is kind of more time and investment time from the business owner, and also will require some investment to kind of either pay the consulting fee or kind of to put a plan together. And after that, there is kind of another level, more deep diving program. So those were kind of more specific, customized to the different business needs. I would say manufacturing is different than the wholesale, and there's the service industry is also different. So those are kind of the information we'll have available. Due to the timing of today's meeting, I think it's kind of going to be overwhelmed if I can have all those information there. But I just want to let you know the support is available here in the BDC. If you're interested, look at the BDC website, and I'll reach out to me or to my colleagues in the local office. We're kind of more than happy to expand a little bit more for you. So now I think the idea for us is we want all the entrepreneurs to work together with all the financial service, including us, including home bank. And that's going to work together. And there is quite a bit of the resource available free for you to take a look and to learn a little bit more. For example, I kind of posted one of the link here. If you want to learn a little bit more about the BDC tariff kind of product and service, you can go to bdc.ca/tariff to find out a little bit more information there. So I will kind of stop right here and think that there's going to be some questions I can answer during the Q&A section. I will kind of have more detail provided there.
Fantastic. Thank you, John. All I heard after your first 10 seconds was $2 million of free money. So I'm sure lots of people will be reaching out to you shortly. I do want to kind of just highlight again this slide. You can reach any of us. And the suggestion really is for this webinar that you do try and reach out to us. I know a lot of these programs can be a little bit more complicated to navigate as well. And so having someone directly in line with you guys to help you go through that, that's what we're here for. So feel free to reach out to any of us after this. John, I do have one quick question for you. I just wanted clarification as you were going through it. You mentioned that typically the loan program is for existing BDC customers. Is that purely the case, or is that also available for other businesses?
I should kind of clear two things. So when we kind of go back to the slide, the $2 million those loan is accessible for all the business, existing or new client. And the second part, we will have that what I call the postponement function. I would say if you apply for the new loan, yes, those can be included there if you want it. And for our existing client, which they have those working capital loan or the loan program with BDC already, now is the chance you can coming back asking the BDC to give you an offer 6 months interest only period to, if you don't need any new money, but you want to kind of maintain some control on the cash flow.
Understood. Thank you for that clarification. So from there, Inyeob and Michael, earlier, we'll kind of just jump into it. Earlier, we heard again from Farina about the volatility in the markets. What can EDC do to provide some level of guarantee to to support businesses trying to enter into new markets or trying to navigate what this whole US situation is about. And I'll kind of throw it to both of you.
Okay. Thank you, Edward. I'll kick it off first. And oftentimes I go to events or conferences, I get mixed by, oh, so you BDC, right? A lot of customers like BDC, EDC, they get mixed up. So I thought it's good for us to explain who we are, what we do first, and then Michael will have a deeper dive on our Train Pack program and other resources and tools. So EDC, we are a sister company to BDC. So we are Crown Corporation, 100% owned by federal government. Over, next slide. Yeah, over 75 years, we are helping Canadian exporter exclusively to help them to grow outside of Canada. And that's what Canada needs. Among OECD countries, we are actually lagging behind in terms of export. But with the US tariff, our role is even more important, we feel. And we are here to talk about what kind of capability we could provide to you. And next slide. Yeah, we have about 16 offices across Canada. We do, like Michael and I work at the Vancouver regional office in downtown, but we have 16 offices. And around the globe, a lot of people don't know, but we have 23 offices. Like we have a boots on the ground. And our main focus with this uncertain times is market diversification. So for the past 3 years, EDC invests heavily on Indo-Pacific region. I really want to highlight Indo-Pacific region because that's the home for, John, if you could go back to the previous slide. Thank you. Yeah, it's a fast growing economy regions. And then EDC opened 6 offices in the region in anticipation of supporting Canadian exporters to take advantage of that growth. So by 2040, the economy of this region will be make up of 50% of global GDP. And then in terms of global consumers, it's going to be make up 40%. So EDC opened 6 offices. So now we have a representation of Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, Japan, Korea, and China. So take advantage of these regions' resources that EDC invested in. I have to acknowledge it's not easy for you to go to different market all of a sudden, like because the US was really conveniently located. It's right there, but we are here for you to support, to look at different market. It may take months and years, but this is a time for Canada to really look into trade diversification. It's not an option. It is a time for us to do it, to diversify our risk. And EDC and BDC, we are all here to support your effort. And next slide. And as I mentioned, EDC is working exclusively with the exporters. However, our definition of exporters is quite broad. So yeah, if you are exporting goods and services, that includes services, which is like, software company or engineering company, that also counts. However, we also support indirect exporters, which means you are not really selling your goods services outside of Canada. However, you are part of that value chain, then we consider you as indirect exporters. For example, you are oil and gas service provider, right? Maybe you are servicing the oil mining company's equipment. But then how we view it is you are part of that value chain, is supporting Canada's energy exports. So we are supporting you in that way. And the same way with a trucking company that we talked about earlier, like in Surrey. Yeah, logistic companies. These companies are helping Canada's goods services moving across the border. Then we are happy to support you as indirect exporters. Or some companies is not yet exporting, however, thinking about exports and have a export plan so that you want to reach your 15% of export growth in next 3 years, then we happy to support you under future exporter mandate. So this is a bit of like how our definition of exporters, because we got that question a lot. And the next slide. And I'm not going to go over like every single exporters examples, but just want to highlight exporters could cover a lot of it. Logistic companies, or you're just warehousing Canadian goods, and then that goods going into US, that will also qualify as exporters. Or tech companies. Tech companies, there's no there's no border crossing. So we are supporting a lot of tech companies as well as service providers. And then I'll take this to the Michael, and then Michael will talk about real meat of our train program.
It's great.
Yes.
It's great. Thank you, Inyeob. Again, folks on the line, I think it's really important to know who we are before you know what we can help with. And thank you, Inyeob, for doing that. We want to make sure we can demystify any kind of ambiguity as to where we can play a role or when and how you can engage us. So I'm hoping that in the next few slides, I'm going to keep it as simple as possible, but I'm going to stick to a few key themes in terms of where we come to the table, given obviously the global political kind of economic challenges that we're having right now. So if you can move to the next slide, please, Edwin. Great. So here we have an important slide. I mean, obviously, similar to John's sentiment, come February, March, we have these new geopolitical challenges with the Trump administration stateside, with tariffs being implemented or threatened to be implemented to which impacts Canadian trade. We have, the Tri-City market, and we have Surrey, which are, major manufacturing hubs close to the border. Similar to Farina's comments earlier, right, with obviously disruption as a result of what's considered to be status quo and always, was always supposed to prevail. And here we are, to Inyeob's point, looking at companies where their concentration risks are being impacted, their top lines are being impacted, and diversification is something that they have to look at as a means to stay viable in an ever-changing global landscape. So similar to BDC, EDC launched a response program whereby we opened up our own balance sheet. So we're not tax funded. And we basically said from our balance sheet, we're going to deploy nationally about $5 billion to help companies who are profitable and who are looking to expand or who are being impacted by these challenges and tariffs, to make sure that they continue to produce the GDP that Canada requires. So, I mean, Farina made a comment earlier about, 5,500 containers being shipped to the US. These are the kinds of solutions that are designed to help those businesses, whereby determining what the risk is, we then come in as the risk expert to mitigate those risks, to make sure that we can minimize the waves, so to speak, as it pertains to international trade. And how we deployed that is through our existing core programs. So simplistically, think of EDC as maybe a 4 or 5 pillared institution, with the focus being on who you're selling to and making sure that you get paid and de-risking that, or looking at you as a business and your own performance risk to your senior lender who's providing you with the working capital so that you can run your business. We flex in and out depending on the situation to mitigate one of those risks, either the counterparty or the performance risk of your business, all with the intent that you can continually run your business, grow your business, and ultimately succeed on a cross-border basis in terms of what you're doing from a revenue basis. So when we look at these 4 solutions, I mean, and I'll speak specifically to the tariff piece, we've seen a massive influx in what EDC provides through trade credit insurance. So basically what that means is if you have an open account whereby you're selling a receivable and they're not paying you up front, and you're selling to another business and they don't pay you, EDC covers that risk for you. So if your invoice is $100, for example, we backstop 90% of that invoice, net any down payment, to help make sure that you get paid and so that you can sleep at night. So when we look at that in terms of the US market, a lot of businesses in the Tri-City and Surrey areas just specifically have heavy concentration to the US in terms of where their revenue comes from. This is a mitigant to make sure that it doesn't sink your quarter for your balance sheet if you don't get paid. And the specific thing that companies are looking to EDC to support here on is actually a risk called repudiation in transit, which means that if, for example, there's tariffs in place and you've shipped a product or you rendered a service, but let's just stick with products because of the trucking space or the manufacturing space, or you you have executed into a contract and you have to start the build in advance of getting paid. So now you have this kind of customized machine, but it's only partly done. And your buyer decides to no longer remit additional payments, or maybe they just don't accept the goods from where you've shipped them. Our trade credit insurance protects you against this risk. And the reason for it is we come in to basically make sure that if you're taking the effort to export, that we're mitigating the risk of that non-payment or that default payment. Because if you have a customized machine that's half built and you haven't shipped it, you can't sell that to somebody else, but you've paid to build it. Or if you're shipping products on your trucks and they found the product somewhere cheaper because there's now a tariff slapped on it, that's a claim scenario for EDC. So these are some of the things that we've done on the receivables insurance side to make sure that you get paid and that you continually export so that you don't, get stuck in a hold pattern. Or perhaps to Inyeob's point, you leverage new opportunities or you look to find new buyers. We can insure those buyers for you because you don't have a rapport with them yet to know that they're going to pay you for what you're rendering to them. Okay. So that's a big piece of what EDC does. We work behind the scenes to make sure you get paid when you're selling cross-border and you have a receivable that's on a payment term that isn't something where you're getting paid up front. Okay. Another big piece to how we're looking at tariffs is based on the guarantee portion. So EDC is not a bank. BDC is a bank. And we flex in at different inflection points to help Canadian businesses. So where we come in, similar to how we work with insurance to make sure that you get paid, on the performance risk of your business, right? Let's say you have a viable business model and now there's geopolitical things that are impacting you, which are causing you to lose revenues, to Farina's point, or you're seeing, sentiment coming back whereby maybe there's like operational impacts, but you have a good business. We work behind the scenes with your bank, your Schedule A bank. So any of the big 6 or 5 in Canada, we work behind the scenes to help them diversify you as a client to them on the risks that they don't want to take. So to give you a simple example, if you're familiar with CMHC for a mortgage, you have 5%, you want to buy a home, the bank has concerns about you not actually fulfilling on that. They make you buy an insurance that protects them against you defaulting as a Canadian company. We work in the same way because you're an exporting business. So we look at operating companies in the same lens where we actually provide insurance as a backstop to the bank in the form of a guarantee to help you have access to the working capital that you need to keep your business running or to keep your business pivoting. Okay. And a big thing that we've also seen recently as it pertains to the US as well. If I buy a business in the States, I don't necessarily have to worry about tariffs because I can have US to US sales and I can just move products stateside. Well, in some cases, your bank isn't comfortable with that. Maybe they're not comfortable extending additional money to you in order for you to buy another business based on how that business is operating or based on how your existing business is operating. But we see that as a direct investment of your business abroad. And that's something that EDC is here to support. And dependent on your situation, we can either work with your bank to help you access the working capital to finance that target company and grow your business abroad, or we can actually directly lend that money to you, depending on the amount of money that you need as a means to help you create a wholly owned subsidiary and diversify your business. And we're very palatable to looking at that in the United States, regardless of the geopolitical concerns or elsewhere, to Inyeob's point earlier, where we have offices abroad, and perhaps you're looking at new value chains or areas where there's new target customers where it makes sense to open an office. Okay. From an investment side, I won't speak too much about that, but let's say that there's opportunities where you're doing R&D and development. We have the opportunity to work behind the scenes on that front. It's just a matter of understanding what the asks are and where your business is going. Okay. To the next slide, please. So as I mentioned, EDC is a pillared institution, right? Depending on what you're looking for, we offer different things. So I spoke to the financing piece in terms of the working capital support. That's provided through guarantees. It can also be provided and through insurance, right? Depending on what your risks are, all right? The other two that I want to actually draw attention to from an EDC standpoint are on the knowledge and connections piece. So Inyeob focused on the offices that we have abroad, okay? The connections piece is an additional tool within our belt that allows you to establish new relationships based on some of the offices that we have abroad in conjunction with efforts from other people within the global trade ecosystem. So perhaps the Trade Commissioner Service or BDC Advisory. And we all work in unison to make sure that if there's new connections that need to be facilitated, we work our best to provide those facilitations. And then you can leverage the insurance if you're making a sale so that you can do it safely. Okay. But in some cases, companies like, hey, listen, I've only sold to the United States. That's all I know, right? I'm getting hammered right now on my sales. I don't know about new markets. I need to discover new trade agreements, right? Well, we also have a knowledge team, and this knowledge team can be leveraged in two ways. One, you can create a My EDC account, which is free, and you have access to all of EDC's macroeconomic data from our chief economists, as well as a list of questions that are brought inbound to EDC into its team that are generated through companies just like yours, right? They have a general question, there isn't an answer, we find a theme, and then we actually populate an FAQ on our website that's updated fairly frequently so that you can find answers to some of your burning questions without necessarily needing to leverage Google and have perhaps erroneous data provided, okay? In addition to that, we also provide about 10 hours for mid-market businesses. So we deem those companies with, say, 10 million in revenue or higher with an actual person who works on the other side pro bono to provide about 15 hours of resource and research efforts to help you with burning questions. So maybe an example is, hey, I need to understand what the taxation requirements are. Withholding taxes for Brazil, I have a reactive sale. These are the kinds of more surgical efforts that EDC can make to help you pivot and to help you through that next inflection point. Next slide, please. Perfect. So as it pertains specifically to the US tariffs, given how pertinent it is, EDC on its landing page has provided multiple resources depending on your business's maturity to understand the impacts of what these tariffs will look like, and it's updated frequently. So it can be as simple as how do tariffs work and what does it mean for my business. It can also be something as more complex as a duty calculator so that you know how deeply impacted your gross margins are so that you need to adjust, okay? In some cases, it's HS code, so you can determine whether or not your actual product or solution is actually impacted based on what the United States is dictating to Canada in terms of its tariff challenge, right? And the other piece, importantly, is there's other programs that EDC offers through our global trade ecosystem, right? So in some cases, we point you to BDC. In some cases, we point you to, trade and investment departments from the province. And in some cases, we actually can provide you with, the basics as to what it looks like to export and import from a freight and 3PL standpoint into new markets. All to say, depending on where you're at with your export journey, whether it be focused on the United States or you're looking to go, or you're tied to a supply chain, the intention is not for you to be an expert of EDC, rather, but more so for you to contact the team here. And there's 6 of us on the Lower Mainland, and then we have someone on the island, and we have someone in the Okanagan. And the reason why I mention this, if you can go to the next slide, is that this team of people, we work as a streamlined group. Our intention is basically to focus on speed and efficacy to make sure that you have the resources and the information necessary to deploy. And because we're such a small outfit, you probably know other people within your own industry associations that aren't in the Tri-City or Surrey area that have never heard of EDC. And this gives you the opportunity to connect them with people, including Inyeob and I, that can help them with some of these challenges as a risk expert for them. That should be it. I think there isn't any more.
Perfect. Well,
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That was a lot of great information, and I'll just kind of interject really quickly with one of my own questions, similar to the one I gave to John. But for the various programs that you just talked about, let's say the trade credit insurance,
Yes.
Do you have to have a My EDC account already, or be an existing client, or can that be retroactively applied if they're seeking for support?
Great question. So you do not need to be a client. All you need to do is give Inyeob a call, or give me a call, or anyone on our team on that slide, which can be disseminated, and we can help you navigate that. A lot of our programs are more discovery, right? You actually don't pay anything to EDC unless you qualify for the program, or if it's a material impact to you based on what your business needs are. So to give you an example, there's a company in Surrey that I was recently speaking with. They make they're a manufacturer, and they make a customized product for a buyer in the United States. It's heavy machinery, and the buyer has stopped communicating with them, and they're 25% through their build, and they don't know what to do because they've used money to build this thing, and there's no resource for it, and they didn't know that they could speak with us in advance of not having an active insurance policy, which isn't the case, right? I think what the biggest caveat is people don't know what they don't know. And I think one of the most important roles for Inyeob and I in this specific community is to make sure that you have a liaise point so that we can then be your trusted advisor and provide you with the necessary resources and or information, whether it be EDC or other, maybe it's BDC or something within the global trade ecosystem that can help you based on your hurdle.
Maybe just to add to that, but I really want to highlight the importance to have My EDC account.
Yes.
Because once you create, anyone could create that account, even individual, right, who interested in a trade, then they could access to all our webinars, all the Q&As, our research and tools available. So I highly recommend anyone could create My EDC account, and that way you could access to all our resources.
Great point.
Fantastic, thank you, and a big thanks again to all of you who joined us here today, and all the businesses that are online. I do see that there is one question that is on the chat, but if any of you would like to add any additional questions, feel free to do so. And this one's kind of directed, I think, more so to BDC and EDC, but the tariffs are changing day by day. One day we're at 50%, the other day we're at 5%, and then the next will be at 10%. How do you expect these programs to kind of evolve with the tariffs? I'll throw it to any of you guys to speak on that.
I probably can jump in first. I would say those programs are kind of really designed in the more reactional basis. But those programs, once we can offer that, for example, for our the pivot loan, if we can have the loan authorized and have amortization for 7 years, yes, we'll kind of honor that for a period of time. And also give you example is BDC did part of the financial support during the COVID time. At that time, we also kind of providing the money to our client, the general public and business owner society. And that was originally designed for only 3 years. And we have those kind of terms and conditions there. But at the end of the COVID, and when everything is kind of moving on, and then we realize there's still after shock, there's still a long-term impact in those the business to really kind of bring everything back to normal. So then the bank was coming up with extension of those things. So those money still made available, and with extended conditions. So I would see now the program, we're focusing on the conditions there. If the tariff is really gone, like knock on wood, I hope that will be gone and then we come back to normal. But then this program will continue to support you what you're doing. It's not something we're going to call back right away.
Fantastic.
And then maybe for EDC, I could answer that. So our trade impact program, it's not like specific new program. It's an enhancement of our existing program in response to U.S. tariffs. So it's for 2 years that we are stretching our parameters and requirement. So it is temporary measurement. Once tariffs like removed, then this is going to go back. And one thing I want to highlight that we didn't mention is the U.S. and the Canadian custom bonds. That's also part of a trade impact program, which we will support. But we always telling exporters that this is just for 2 years. And then once this is removed, then we have to cancel our support after that. So yeah, hope that answered your question.
No, absolutely. That's a great response. And I noticed that your hand is up. I'll ask that if you wouldn't mind just typing your question for now, just due to the limitations of time. And that way, even if we don't get to it, I can have someone respond back. But I do see Praveen has asked a question as well to the City of Surrey regarding kind of what the city is doing to support manufacturing. Are there any panels for discussions? And Farina, before I pass that over to you, I'm going to kind of maybe just speak on the Coquitlam side of things as well. So it is typically a little bit more difficult for a city or near impossible for a city to provide some sort of financial incentive for a business. And so a lot of the work that we do is collecting and hearing from businesses within our jurisdiction and sharing the information to groups like BDC and EDC. And that's really how this all got started today and how their programs were shaped. It's because of conversations that we're having with Inyeob, Michael, and John, and saying, hey, the money and the financial support that needs to go to our businesses needs to be done in this way. And that's kind of how they kind of come up with their programs as well. So a lot of our work, especially here in economic development, is taking the intelligence that we're hearing on the ground and curating it and then passing it off to our partners. But Farina, I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Edward. That's a great question. And I'd like to echo a lot of what you just said. In terms of financial support, the city has almost no sort of financial support available for businesses when situations like these happen. But like Edward mentioned, we are collecting a lot of this information and data from the businesses, and then sort of having that liaison role between businesses, industry partners, and support programs and services available, like the EDC and BDC programs that we just heard about. So specifically in Surrey's case, and specifically in manufacturing, which I think the question was about, what we know to be true is mostly the uncertainty that businesses are facing right now. So things like, when it comes to things like CUSMA compliance, the businesses aren't exactly sure if the products that they have is CUSMA compliant or not. There was an interesting RBC economics report that said, about 90% of products that are shipped to or exported to the US technically should be CUSMA compliant, but just a couple of years ago, only 50% got that. So it's very specific issues or challenges like this that businesses are facing. And to Michael's point earlier, they don't know what they don't know. So where we come in is we partner with a lot of our industry associations and business organizations in the community to be able to provide those services and that information for businesses. So to highlight some of the more immediate things that are happening in the next little while, we are partnering with the Surrey Board of Trade to host a specific session where every business, including manufacturing, but all industries, can join. And the purpose of that would be to get advice from certified customs brokers, and to get advice specific to each business's product category. So if you have a question of, oh, I have some machinery in the US and I need to be moving it to Canada, do I need to pay duties on that? Those are very specific questions that a certified advisor can only answer. So where we come in is connecting businesses with those advisors and then sponsoring the session so that it's a little bit easier, especially for small and medium-sized manufacturers to be able to navigate the situation. And then we continuously monitor the situation as well to be able to connect businesses with the right resources, such as the EDC and BDC programs. We have a page that highlights all these programs that Surrey businesses and businesses beyond Surrey can utilize, the Tariff and Trade Resource Center page on the Invest Surrey website, if you want to check it out. We update it pretty frequently. So hope that answered the question.
No, I think that was a great response, Farina. I will mention Anne had put a number of links on the chat box as well for EDC and some of the resources, specifically as it pertains to some of the webinars. And so definitely would suggest that you guys check it out. We do have a little bit of time, so there is one last question that I will throw over to John from Sumeet. And his question, John, is that, and this is my interpretation of it, is the loan for the facility, is that part of kind of the bank financing that they're already doing? I guess the question is more, how does BDC differentiate from one of the big six? And then his follow-up question is kind of, what is the definition of, operations within Canada, I assume pertaining to the loan program that you have?
Sure. I would say for that, I will kind of, without the detailed information, I have to make an assumption. Two assumptions. One is your existing BDC client, and you have some loan product with us. And this program I mentioned today, that is a separate loan program. It's kind of different than what you have. So we'll be on top of that. And it have the kind of specific design, the structure, the pricing, or the payment terms. If you also have a working capital loan, like the line of credit or others with your home bank, also big five, big six. So this again is not kind of jeopardize your relationship with them. It's kind of more of an add-on. The uniqueness is for the BDC is we are kind of more position ourselves at the complementary lender or the beside the home bank. So we are not going to fight against the whatever the security structure they have. So we'll kind of basically, in some case, we're behind them, and we'll take it the kind of secondary security behind your home bank. So while they maintain the continuous support, and then we are adding more extra. So if you like to kind of to learn more, basically, if you have the account with the BDC, you can reach out to your account manager. If you don't, feel free to reach out to me, and then we can definitely look into more. And also, I want to kind of adding a little bit more things since people are asking what a city can provide, what the BDC provide, EDC. We mentioned about some BDC, EDC product, and also there are quite a bit of the program from the other the departments. The government kind of have some of those programs support Canadian business and workers. There's different one, and I would say FCC, Farm Credit Canada, also have different information on the program there. So there's a lot of information available. I would say do your best to kind of do the research there. If you need extra help, reach out to EDC, you, Michael, and me to BDC side. We'll have those information available and kind of share with you along the way.
Fantastic. Thank you, John. And I like the final message that you left, which is, when in doubt, reach out to one of us, and at the very least, we'll guide you in the right direction. So as we kind of wrap up today's discussion, I just wanted to extend another sincere thank you to all of our partners from the City of Surrey, Business Development Bank of Canada, and Export Development Canada as well, for sharing their insights and their tariff relief programs. We will be sharing PDFs detailing their programs from both BDC and EDC alongside. There should be a copy of this webinar because it is being recorded that will be shared as well. All to say, this is really just the beginning of the conversation. We encourage all of you to stay connected and ask questions. Thank you again, all of you, for being here today, and we look forward to continuing this important dialogue in the weeks ahead. And with that, we will close off this webinar. Thank you again, everyone, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a good
everybody.
day.
Great job.